Well, hi everyone. My name is Anna. I'm a software engineer, and I work in realestate.com.au. Today, I will tell you a very short story about developers and ops relationships. Well, big warning sign here. Everything that I'm going to say is based on my personal experience, and some names and details I changed for the purpose of this talk. So I started working in IT more than 13 years ago. And I'm around 7 years with my current company. And back then, we didn't have DevOps. We had developers, we had ops people, and there was a super massive black hole in the middle. We were not friends those days. I think we were more like two different species. And there were many things that were setting us apart. One of them is that developers didn't have access to production for the systems that they were building. So our continuous delivery process looked like this. Developers would write some code, throw it to QA. QA would test it on an environment that was nothing like production. Then we would package it up and throw those packages down on our ops team to deploy and support. Well, that was our process. And we call it agile. Our ops team, they were not very strong agile believers. They didn't really like this package down approach. But they were not complaining. They were ops people. They were tough. And you needed to be tough to be an ops person back then. You needed to smoke a lot, drink a lot, use tough language, maybe skip a few showers. Be tough. And as a developer, I had a very difficult relationship with that team. I guess because we had different priorities. My priority was to build more stuff. It was literally in my KPIs. My manager would even try to calculate how many lines of code I was writing per day. But I always confuse her with my refactoring. 2 lines in, 10 lines out. At the end, it was very hard for her to calculate. So my performance was tied to the number of builds. And I was trying to build as much stuff as fast as I possibly could. But our ops team, I think they just wanted to get a good night's sleep. There were conflicted priorities, but we were agile. So we tried to collaborate. I will tell you how our regular interactions would look like. On any given day, when I have a build ready, I would go downstairs to the dungeon. We used to keep our ops people in a dungeon. They don't really like sunlight. I would find a random ops person. Let's name him Steve. And I would say something like, "Hey, Steve, why you haven't deployed the build that I sent you 10 minutes ago?" He would say, "Well, hello, nice to see you too. I have no idea what are you talking about." And I would say, "Well, open your email and you will see that there is a piece of software attached to it. I want you to deploy it." Well, back in those days, we didn't have the fancy CI tools like BuildKite or Bamboo. So we were emailing each other packages. So he would open his email and said, "Well, I clearly see there is a piece of something, but what changes are you trying to deploy? So I need to know what I'm deploying. Like, what's inside your package?" What's inside? You should never ask developer this question. What's inside the package? It's like asking a butcher what's inside the sausage. It's code, it's working, all it matters. Like ops people can understand the complexity of software, please. But he would deploy it. And the next day, I would find out that he rolled back my build. So I needed to go to the dungeon again. And I would not be so friendly. I would basically scream at him, like, "Why you roll back my build?" And he would say, "Well, at 1 a.m., I received a call from a very angry Italian. And he was complaining that application is not working. So after I checked all the possible network issues, I rolled back the latest build, and it came back to normal. So I think that your code has a problem. Well, my company used to have an office back in Italy. And unlike Australians, they were using very fast and modern browser at that time, called Internet Explorer. And OK, I put a comma in the wrong place, and my script was not working in Internet Explorer, because we never bothered to test our changes in that browser. So technically, it was QA's fault. But we were agile, so we taught our ops team to test every single build after they deployed in Internet Explorer. You know, you made a mistake, you learn from it. So years went by, and culture started to change a little bit in my company. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when we pioneered a new fashion called team managed infrastructure. What it meant that from then on, every single development team is also responsible for deploying and supporting the applications. Our ops team got so excited about it, they even came out of the dungeon. They came to our team area and said, "Congratulations. Now, guys, you are the lucky owners of all the systems that you guys work on. Here is your production access, and here is the phone to talk to Italians. Ciao." Well, I wasn't excited about that change. I guess I was happy to have a production access for a change, but I didn't want to talk to angry Italians in the middle of the night. Back then, I was working with legacy financial systems that were running on Windows. Like, it was a nightmare to support them. One of our services had such a massive memory leak that our recommendation to support it was to restart it every 12 hours. Well, you know, it was an easy call for developers to make. It wasn't our job to do it. Plus, as a developer, I was never accountable for the stuff that I built. I mean, if it turned out to be good, I would take credit for it. But if there was a problem, there were always ops people to fix it, and QAs to blame for it. But I could not stop the progress. The whole company was changing. So I had to join the after-hours pager. So what that package included? First, you need to carry your laptop 24/7 for 1 week. Second, no trips outside of good internet coverage zone. Third, 0 alcohol because you're dealing with financial systems. And lots of sleepless nights. Alcohol and smoking was my only therapy back in those days. They were helping me to deal with our financial systems and our agile process. I was not ready to give it up, even for 1 week. Though I realized that, you know, like, my laptop doesn't have a breathalyzer. But, you know, I was a good citizen. I needed to comply. So fine, I joined the pager. Well, I was voluntold. In my company, it meant you highly encouraged to volunteer. And I started my shift on Monday. I got 0 alerts. Then came Tuesday. I got 0 alerts as well. I started to think, wow, that might be the easiest money that I will ever earn in my life. But then it came Wednesday. Turned out, Wednesday was the last day of the month. If you're dealing with financial systems, especially the ones that we have in my company, it meant that we need to bill and invoice our customers. And I completely forgot about it. So on Wednesday night, I received a call from a friendly ops person, Steve. he said something like, hey, I hope you enjoy your pager. By the way, it's the last day of the month, so make sure that the billing run runs successfully. Oh, crap. I forgot about it. At that moment, I realized that I made a big mistake. I now need to babysit this stupid billing run. And it was stupid, because its monitoring system, well, it was a bit unconventional. When I say unconventional, I mean it's not going to alert you when something went wrong, duh. It's going to send you an email when it successfully completed a certain stage of the process. So even when nothing went wrong, you need to stay awake for 7 or 8 hours in the night to make sure that the process actually finished. Like, who would build such a stupid monitoring and alerting system? Well, technically, that was me. But, you know, I never had access to production. I mean, like, how should I know how the good monitoring and alerting look like? So there I was, at 10 p.m., in front of my computer, waiting for billing run to write me. Well, I got a first email saying something like, I started, great. Then I made myself a cup of tea and started to think about all the bad decisions in my life that led me to that point. But I also started to feel some empathy for ops people. Well, they had to babysit this thing every single month, like for years, even on New Year's Eve. Well, 1.5 hours in, I started to have a feeling. You know, like you have this bad intuition that I think something is wrong. Well, there was no easy way to validate it. There was no diagnostic endpoint, nothing. So I said, OK. I'll just jump on the box. So I connected to the Windows box. I opened a task manager. And I'm trying to find the process that would indicate that it's coming from this billing run and it's running. I found nothing. I'm like, OK, logs. Logs. There should be logs somewhere. But as a developer, I realized I never actually bothered to log anything. I mean, why should I? I never had access to those logs anyway. So there were none. OK, I thought, it's a Windows box. So there should be system logs somewhere. And I found one. And there was a very weird error saying something like, invalid character in line 306. At that moment, I just panicked. I'm like, I have no idea what it means. I have no idea if the process is running or not. Like, I exhausted all my options. I don't know what to do next. So I called Steve. He was very happy to receive my call after midnight. But I think he knew, because it took him 3 seconds to diagnose the problem. He said, it sounds like a Rob Smith problem. Like, what? Rob Smith? What are you talking about? And he's like, oh, there is a customer, Rob Smith. I think he happened to have a carriage return symbol in his name. So every month, when his financial transactions end up in our database, billing run fails because it doesn't know how to deal with the carriage return symbol. I was like, what? How often that happens if you know so much about it? You don't even know his name. He's like, every month, apart from August. He's probably on leave at that time. I was furious, like one customer breaking the whole billing run for $5 billion company every single month? Like, why you never told us about it? He's like, I told you guys, I told you multiple times, you need to fix your validation, you need to make sure that the data is correct. But you're very busy running around, doing other stuff. Well, it was too late to argue about that. So I asked him, fine, I mean, what should I do now? We need to invoice our customers tomorrow. He said, connect to the database, find every single transaction that Rob Smith made that month, and remove a carriage return symbol from his name. So there I was, writing SQL statements on our production database in the middle of the night, unsupervised. When I clicked execute button, I realized I should have probably back it up, just in case. Well, if my script by accident would corrupt or remove our financial data, I would be in a big trouble. My company would be in a big trouble. But I didn't know any better. It was my first time dealing with production issues. I was stressed, it was middle of the night. Well, luckily for me, my script worked. I restarted the process, but I still needed to stay awake till 7 a.m. the next morning to make sure this bloody process finished. So when I came back to work next day, I was very angry, I was tired, but I learned a few lessons. First, never ever sign up for a shift that falls on the last day of the month, if you're dealing with financial systems. Second, have some empathy for ops people. Their job is very hard. But honestly, since that night, my development practices changed a lot. I started to think about monitoring, logging, alerting, and documentation. Every system that I built after that, I started with SLAs. How it should work, how the system going to tell me when it's not working, what should I log, what should I document, and whom I should escalate when something goes wrong. I think I was lucky that my whole team jumped on Pager with me, so it helped us to have very productive conversations. And we gave a very good priority to support issues. I think the whole company changed. Well, we no longer keep our ops people in a dungeon. Now they enjoy the sunlight like the rest of us. I think they act more like consultants. They help us to set up infrastructure in the cloud, answer tricky questions, and keep an eye on our AWS bill. I cannot say that we lived happily ever after, but we go to the same pub and we drink the same beer. So for every developer in the audience, I encourage you to jump on Pager. Have this experience on another side of the fence, or at least pair with ops people when they're dealing with production issues. For every ops person, have some empathy for developers. They're not making your life miserable on purpose. Try to understand their delivery pressures. Well, that is all that I prepared for today. I'm very keen on your feedback, so please deliver good one to me, constructive one to our organizer, Simon, and thank you very much for listening.